Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Jacobs, and you're listening to Juiced Sports Radio. And Austin Rivers is taking his talents to the NBA. The 6'4", 203-pound shooting guard out of Duke with a wiry frame is taking his quick first step, his excellent shooting skills, his questionable court vision, and his shaky defense to the NBA. Projected to be a top 15 lottery pick, I can't fully blame him. But here's the alarming trend that this keeps setting up for the league and for college. College basketball keeps losing all of its young, recognizable stars because they bolt right away after one season to the league. Now, I understand they want millions of dollars, although in the case of Rivers, his father is set, so money isn't a huge concern for that family. Also, I understand these guys have ambitions to go pro, and if you have the chance, why not take it? But there is an issue that the NBA needs to address. They need to figure out, do we want these guys to stay in college for a real amount of time, or do we want to be able to take guys straight out of high school? Because what this is doing to the college ranks is it's basically taking the faces that we recognize every year from the teams. You know, when you look at Kentucky, every single year I hardly recognize their roster anymore. And I was making a joke to someone the other day that Kentucky will never be able to retire a number again because all their best players leave when they're freshmen. It's just the reality of the situation. This was not Duke and Coach K's MO at the start of the 2000s. You know, you looked at the teams that won championships, the one in 2001, they won with a mix of senior talent and young leadership. But they had a good mix. And players then stayed till they were at least juniors for Coach K. This will be, I believe, the fourth defection from a freshman in the last few years alone for the Blue Devils. And obviously Kyrie Irving was the #1 overall pick. He played like 8 games for Duke last year. He was a freshman. Now, if you can get to the NBA, more power to you. But it really is concerning that college basketball is taking the hit for this. The games in this year's NCAA tournament have not been nearly as good as in years past. And quite frankly, we haven't seen dominant teams in years either. And I don't consider Kentucky dominant despite how good they sometimes look. The reality of the situation is when you don't have these seniors and juniors that have been there, teams are much more vulnerable because they're not nearly as used to playing with each other. They don't know each other nearly as well as some of the teams of the 90s. That's just how it is. And you know, when you look back, there hasn't been a lot of dominant teams lately. Teams haven't come close to threatening the undefeated season of the Hoosiers back in the 70s, except for recently when Illinois won all their games except for the last one against Ohio in 2005. That team lost to North Carolina. Both of those teams had a number of upperclassmen. I just want to read you a quick list. So the 2005 Illinois team, they had all of 2 freshmen. UNC had 3 freshmen. And Illinois was led by guys like Luther Head, Deron Williams, and D. Brown. They had great veteran leadership, and there was a reason that team was really good, besides the fact they were obviously very talented. Kentucky this year, they have 4 seniors or juniors combined on their entire roster. It's unheard of what Kentucky is doing. And the fact that they're able to succeed is pretty impressive, given the fact that they basically have 1 year, Coach Calipari does, to mold these teams into winners. But that's neither here nor there. The NBA needs to decide if they want players to stay in school for at least 2 seasons or if they want them to go straight from high school to the NBA. Because the continuity is really killing college basketball. As I said, the games this year have not been nearly as good. Some of the shooting has just been atrocious. And I think that's because you've got a bunch of guys who are these hot shot players and they're just heaving up shots and there's just not the same caliber of play. You learn as a freshman. You're supposed to sit on the bench and have some minutes as a freshman, not to be the entire team. And that's what we're seeing. Too many of these teams have a senior or 2 and the rest is a bunch of young guys running around and jacking up shots. It's just not the same caliber of basketball. And quite frankly, it's disappointing. I would like the NBA to institute a rule that says, hey, you either go to college and you stay there for 2 years or you leave right after high school. Just do something. Just get something out there. From 2000 to 2003, only juniors and seniors left Duke's program. And we're talking about guys like Carlos Boozer, Shane Battier, Jay Williams. We're talking about elite talent guys. Then in 2004, Luol Deng left as a freshman, and it's somewhat been downhill from there. It's been a snowball effect. And as I said, the quality of play has been affected all across the nation. I think that's also the reason why the mid-major gap has closed significantly and why we're seeing many more upsets than we used to, because a lot of those teams stay together for many more years. They understand each other. They know where each other's going to be on the court. And when you have 4 years to play with a guy compared to one, you can beat a good team on any given night. That's just how it is. A lot of analysts said that this year was the worst bubble they had ever seen. That's not saying much for college basketball. 2 of the top teams remaining in the field, UNC and Syracuse, they have players that aren't just freshmen. UNC has Strickland, Marshall, Henson, Barnes, Zeller, and they're all at least a sophomore or more. I know that's not great, but you can see why those teams play so well together. UNC it flows because they've got guys who've played with each other. It's not just a one-year experiment like it is in Kentucky. What do you think of the whole situation? Do you think college basketball was played at a higher level before these freshman and sophomore defections? Do you think teams like Kentucky are actually bad for the game in the long term because it hurts the continuity of college basketball? My name is Scott Jacobs. You've been listening to Juiced Sports Radio. Austin Rivers, the freshman sensation from Duke, is heading to the NBA, and half of Kentucky's team isn't far behind him. Good night, everybody.